All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of Not Another Whiskey Podcast. We're doing a 30 minutes with Erik McRitchie, all the way from Canada. My name's Mitch Beshard, as always, joined by Daz Haldane. Daz, how you doing, man?
Very good, boys. Nice to see you both.
Brilliant. Erik, welcome to the show, sir.
Guys, thanks for having me on. I've been listening since you guys began, so it's a real treat for me to be here today.
Was that saying first-time listener? No.
Long-time caller? No,
long-time listener, first-time caller.
Yeah, there you go.
So, Erik, you have a claim to fame now. You're the first Canadian that we've ever had on the podcast, man. Congratulations.
Hey, right on. Yeah, that's great. Well, it's good to be here representing the Great White North. It's currently minus 25 here in Calgary, Alberta, so freezing cold. The other day, it was actually minus 42 overnight. And I left a dram outside throughout the night. And when I woke up in the morning, it was frozen like a popsicle, like frozen solid right through. Yeah.
See, that's why you need to drink cast strength whiskeys, my friend.
Yeah, I got out at ABV. Yeah, absolutely.
Mate, that temperature is almost as cold as Daz's heart.
Oh, that hurts. That hurts.
I'm only joking, Daz. I know you've got a heart somewhere.
Somewhere. Yeah, in the cupboard.
But Erik, if anyone hasn't met you before or isn't aware of you, so to explain what Erik does, Erik is a very well-known photographer over in Canada, and recently he turned his hand into whiskey, and we're going to get onto that in a second. So Erik is one of 3 people that run the amazing From Barrel to Bottle Instagram page. So if you haven't followed them yet, check them out, because they do some absolutely stunning pictures of whiskey bottles, of them pouring drams, predominantly over in Canada when it is minus 40, and they do a lot of ice skating as well, which is really cool to see. So Erik, let's talk a little bit about your progression from professional photographer into whiskey. How did that all happen?
Yeah, so I've been a professional photographer for maybe about 7 or 8 years now. Taking pictures out in the Rockies. I live on the edge of the Rocky Mountains. It's just stunning. It's like a cheat code for taking a good photo. And kind of built a bit of a name for myself going out on adventures with friends and those kind of things. And about 6 years ago, I actually got contacted by an agency that was representing the Macallan here in Canada. And they asked me, hey, would you ever be interested in taking a bottle of whiskey with you out on an adventure in the mountains and, maybe grab a few pictures? And I thought that sounded like a brilliant idea. I get to go with some of my buddies, take some whiskey that they're going to give me out to the top of a mountain and share it with some friends. And I thought that was awesome. So I said, absolutely. And we went out onto this backcountry hike. It was about a 30-kilometer hike into the backcountry. We were at the top of one of the most beautiful places in the world. The sun is setting. I'm sharing drams with my friends, taking a few pictures as we go, and combining a few of my favorite things and passions. And from that point, I posted that on my main photography channel, which was mostly hiking pictures and outdoor adventures and those kind of things. And I started noticing all these whiskey accounts that started to comment on these pictures. They started maybe finding some hashtags or seeing them pop up in different places. And at that point in time, I didn't really know that the whole whiskey, the community was so strong and so such a prominent place. And so I started looking into a lot of these accounts and started realizing there's a real community and network here of people that are passionate about whiskey, about sharing those memories and creating memories together. And so sort of started the wheels turning a little bit. I'm very rarely the smartest guy in the room, pretty much never. And so it took me a while to clue in that this was a real opportunity here. And so I went out again. I got hired for a second campaign. This time, Macallan sent me a rare cask, which was awesome. And I went out, and it was snowing in the Rockies. We're out on a frozen lake playing hockey, very Canadian, and sharing this again. And at this point, this is probably about 4 months later, it sort of clued in that there's a real opportunity here. And so I pulled in a couple buddies, because whiskey's best enjoyed with your friends. And I said, hey, I think there's something we could do here. So let's take some bottles. We went out and bought some bottles of whiskey, stuff that we had, the stuff that we were interested in. And we just started going on adventures and taking cool photos. And it was a combination of the right idea at the right time, the right kind of quality, I think, and then just really committing to a lot of hard work to make this thing happen. And it took off. And
yeah, I remember that. I've seen your rare cask stuff, and I didn't realize that was your first couple of gigs, paid, almost ads, sort of influencer work, call it what you want. But it's really, really amazing. It really that's a nice bottle to take pictures of as well. The rare cask bottle. The photos very well, man. Yeah.
That I finished that bottle, that actual bottle. I finished that this Christmas. That was my bottle that I drank when my son was born. I drank that with my good friends when my grandfather passed. Like this was a commemorative bottle, special moments bottle. And so it's a bit emotional actually finishing it off I've got another batch. I've got, some different bottles and stuff like that, but that was the one that drew it right back to where it all began, and so finished that this Christmas with my family and said, okay, on to the next one.
Yeah,
nice, man.
Hopefully they're sending you stock and you're not still having to pay for it.
Yeah, that's right.
No, it's amazing to see. I mean, you look at from barrel to bottle now, and I think you guys are around about 50,000 followers, which is a huge amount of growth in a short period of time. And then your personal page as well, I think is up to around about 70,000 followers. And the pictures you post on that, not just the whiskey ones, but the landscape ones are like, I looked at one the other day. I think it was the one you took. There was a house and there was a lake in front of it and there was snow all over it. And it was taken at night. I was just like, holy shit. It literally made my jaw drop. I'm like, that is just unbelievable. I mean, when you do taking aside the whole whiskey stuff, but that landscape stuff as well, how long does that take you to set all that up and edit and everything?
Oh, like it really is tricky out here because the conditions, like shooting in the mountains, can change minute by minute. And so you never know what you're going to get, really. You have a concept or an idea in your mind, but you're out and the snowstorm, you can't see anything, or you go out for a sunrise. Like this is one of the things. I live 2 hours from the mountains, and so I'll leave in the middle of the night in the dark to get there for sunrise, just hoping that you're going to catch something. And 9 times out of 10, it's kind of dull and gray, and you don't get much. But that one time, that kind of is like the makes it all worthwhile, And so I've always tried to be a bit reactionary too. Like I go out there with some rough ideas in my head, but man, you got to flex, you got to roll with what the conditions are, and then you kind of come up with something on the spot, which I think is really beautiful too. Like with photography, is like I really do believe you can take a great photo anywhere you go. You just need to be creative and start to change the way you think and look at things a little bit. And so, man, snowstorms or gray skies, there's still opportunities there. And that's, one of the reasons why I really love helping people learn how to take photos too.
Love it how you talk about the Rockies as if they're on your doorstep and it's 2 hours away. In Scotland, if you go 2 hours one way or 2 hours the other way, you're in the sea or the ocean. That's you. You're off the island.
Canada's a big country. I had some friends from Scotland over, and I was trying to tell them that. I was like, oh, let's just go to the mountains for the day. And they're like, oh yeah, like is that like 10, 15 minutes kind of thing? I'm like, it's a bit of a hike, but yeah, it's worth it when you see them in real life for sure.
Yeah.
And you guys have got some stuff that will kill you up in those mountains, right? You must have some good stories about that.
Yeah, that's right. There's that one place where we shot the first round with the McAllen, the grizzly bear territory, and we're in there in the fall, right as they're getting ready to hibernate, so they're hungry. So the real trick with grizzly bear territories, you need to be prepared, but the most important thing is you just can't be the slowest guy in the group. So as long as there's somebody slower than you, then you're going to be okay. So
good one to stay sober for as well, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, actually, on that one shoot, there was a guy that we were with, or that we passed, who had just had an encounter with a big grizzly bear, and the grizzly bear had charged him. So he was walking by himself at sunrise in this area and came kind of face to face to this big grizzly bear. This grizzly bear stood up on his hind legs and kind of looked at him, and the guy slowly started to back away. And then he turned his back on the bear, which is something you're not supposed to do. And the bear beelined it as fast as he could straight towards the guy. And right before it hit him, he veered off into the trees. But there was another photographer standing back who actually got a photo of this with the bear standing up on his hind legs, challenging this photographer. And so we had a bottle of scotch. We're walking down and couldn't, he told us this story. I'm like, whoo. Yeah, we didn't, that was pretty scary. So,
and see, when you're out on those trips, you're out in the hills, you're going out fairly regular now. You're packing a hip flask, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's right. We're always carrying full bottles with us. Most of the time it's some glassware as well, because we're not that, I told you, we're not that smart. A hip flask is a great idea, actually.
Yes. Well, if you haven't got one, we'll need to send you one. But I was just going to ask you, when you're out there in the Rockies, what is your go-to hip flask whiskey? But if you've not got a hip flask, that's a difficult question to answer.
Oh, I have a few hip flasks for sure. You know what? It really depends. Like, I'm sure it's like you guys. It's like, what do you like to drink on a regular basis? Like, I keep going back to some of the favorites. Like, I've got a real soft spot in my heart for Ardbeg. I had a chance to be over at the distillery a couple of years ago, which was just, magical. And then, for me, McAllen was where the adventure started. That'll always draw me back. First bottle of scotch that I ever bought was a bottle of Dalmore 12. I was in a duty free. I had no idea what I was looking at. saw the bottle, kind of stood out. I said, I'm gonna pick up one of those. And so, as far as like the classic go-tos, like those are someone that I always find myself reaching for. And then when we're out on adventures, it's always great to share something new. So we're always bringing new bottles with us. And, the big thing about it is not taking a cool picture. We always get a little bit of flack because most of the time the bottles are sealed, but that's just because they look better in the photos. But we're cracking these things and we're sharing them after. That's the fun in it, So
yeah, I get annoyed at that when people get so sort of uptight about stuff like that. It's like they just take beautiful pictures and then they're gonna crack it and get into it. I've always found with hip flasks, I don't know about you, Mitch, I do like a wee bit of smoke in my hip flask whiskies. I would always go that kind of mid-level Highland Park, Springbanks, Taliskers, those types are always in that sort of sweet spot for a good hip flask whiskey. Definitely something that's not shy and retiring,
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But I'm the same as Eric. I just take a bottle. I don't bother with hip flasks. So Eric, I'm trying to think. The last time we hung out was Victoria. I think that was 2019 or 2018, something like that. So what's been happening in Canada land since I've been away? What's been going on whiskey wise? What's been going on with you guys? I think you guys are still in lockdown there, right?
Yeah, you know what? Pretty much like the rest of the world, like everything was cooking along nice and fine, and then pandemic hit, and everything kind of got thrown up in the air. Feels like the pieces are still kind of coming down and finding their places now, but we're still locked down in certain areas of the country to differing degrees right now. And so there's quite a bit of frustration around that, I think, across the country. You've got people that understand, they're trying to do their best and trying to make things happen. You got people whose livelihoods have been affected, and you got people who are really getting frustrated and fed up with, all the longevity of what's happening. And so it takes a fair bit to really kind of piss a Canadian off, but it seems like there's quite a few people pretty mad right now. There's a big convoy that's happening across our country of truck drivers who are protesting.
Unbelievable.
It's crazy. They're saying like, I don't know. I've heard like differing numbers, but like 50,000 trucks that are heading to Ottawa right now, our capital, to kind of say enough is enough. And you've got a whole bunch of other people that are on the other side of it, just saying like, give it a rest, guys. We're doing the best we can. And you got a whole bunch of people in the middle are just drinking their whiskey, just waiting for this thing to end. So that's probably where I'm at for the most part.
As a photographer, though, you must you like to travel, you like to get out and about, and that must frustrate you more so, no?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think when things, when things first hit, like both the photography world, like my main kind of landscape adventure commercial stuff was really taking off, and the whiskey stuff too. And so everything kind of ground to a halt right at the time that it seemed to be kind of moving in the right direction. And just like everybody else in the world, you gotta find a way to pivot. You gotta find a way to do things differently and not be frustrated. And the one thing for me that it really has done is it's really it's allowed me to stop and to really be kind of grateful for what I have like close to home, and both the locations and the people. And instead of being just mad the whole time, I can kind of take a different look and just say, I got a lot of things going that are in a really good place right now. I got a young family. I was traveling all over the place before, and now I get to be home with my kids as they grow up a little bit more. And these things are good. And so, we'll just shift and we'll figure it out as we go. That's kind of my take on it.
I can relate to that, man. That's the same for me. And Mitch had probably just stopped traveling just a bit before I did. Pre-lockdown, maybe the year before or something, but it was the same, and actually, when you've been at home for 2 years, you look at it and go, I don't really want to go back to that. You kind of think, how did I get away with that? It was hectic. It was full on, man. Running from airport to airport, and I'm late for everything, Eric. So I was like, planes, man, were like taking off, and I was hanging on to them. Do you know what I mean? As they were going up, it's ridiculous. But as I've enjoyed it, like not enjoyed the situation, but the sort of outcome of it has actually been quite good in so many ways. I'm seeing the positive side like you are. And Mitch, but you'd stopped traveling a wee bit before that, Mitch.
Yeah, I had, mate. Yeah. So I got kind of used to it. Got used to not jumping on a plane every 2 seconds, which was nice. But well, I mean, Eric, hopefully you are going to travel to Scotland soon, which is going to be in September. We're going to bring you over here and do a little retreat together. So Daz, I don't know if I've told you about this, but Eric and I are doing a couple of retreats in September.
Yeah, you gave me a little bit of an insight into it when we were up in Speyside a couple of weeks ago, and it was it sounds really cool, what you guys are doing. And I think both sides, access to some pretty cool spots in and around the whiskey industry, meet some cool people, and maybe learn a thing or two as you go, right?
It's going to be fun. And as we record this, which is in February right now, we haven't actually released any of this. So I don't know when we're going to be dropping this episode. I think it's going to be around about March time. And by that point, we should have released some of the details on it. But it's going to be called Drams and Cams. And it's going to be 2 whiskey retreats over 2 weekends that Erik and I will be hosting together. So I'm going to be chatting the whiskey stuff. Eric's going to be chatting the photography stuff, all inclusive, Craigellachie Lodge, sunset, sunrise, photo shoots, 101 on whiskey, 101 on photography. I probably won't make any of the sunrise photo shoots. I don't think I'll be probably been too involved in the whiskey the night before.
You know, it's
you can be the stunt liver, Mitch. That's
exactly.
you.
I'll get the breakfast on for everyone.
So excited, man! It's going to be so awesome. Like, we're pulling together passions in 2 different worlds, 3 different worlds of adventure, exploring whiskey, photography, pulling together the right people on it. And you know, one of the things that I love the most is, yeah, taking great photos, going on great adventures, but like I said, sharing those moments with other people and then helping them get passionate about these things too. And so, yeah, I can't wait. I think this is just going to be an amazing time. Like, we've got, you know, Mitch, your kind of insider knowledge, taking us around some of these places that you know, we wouldn't normally have access to. Both that and the stories and you know, the lessons we're going to learn, the whiskeys we're going to get to share. And then, you know, basically I'm going to take my whole toolbox of photography and just open that up and just give away whatever I can to help other people. And whether that's you want to take great landscape photos or photos of your family, or if you really want to step into the whiskey space, really grow your own, you know, kind of social media, your own accounts, take it from whatever level you are at to the next level, then, you know, that's what we're there for. And I'm super excited for that, man. I can't wait. I'm counting down the days until we get over there together.
Yeah, mate.
Mitch is always giving me shit for my photos and my crap use of social media and stuff like that. So I think it's not even going to be asked. Mitch is just going to tell me, Daz, you're going on this. That's what's happening.
Yeah, mate.
Awesome. Love it.
You can spoon with me one of the nights or 2 of the nights. Again.
Not again. No.
That's going to be good. So, Erik, I think one of the things we haven't touched on the podcast at all is Canadian whiskey. What's new and interesting? I know Alberta, where you are, there's some really good stuff coming out there right now, right?
Yeah, that's right, man. You know, there's a local distillery here called Alberta Distillers. It's our hometown distillery. It's a really, it's kind of a hidden gem. It's located downtown Calgary. Calgary is about a city of 1 million people or so. They've been in operation for about 75 years. And you might have heard of some of the controversy around the award that they received a couple years ago. And that kind of put, you know, some of the whiskey that they were making, you know, into the forefront. People were kind of noticing them, but they are kind of famous for their rye right now. And their cask strength rye is just phenomenal. Like, it is fantastic. Really, really good stuff. It's a massive
How are you drinking
facility.
it, Erik? Is it just neat as it is? Are you whipping it on ice, old fashions? How are you guys drinking that stuff?
Yeah, so their cask strength, I like it neat with a little bit of water. And so it's got that spiciness from the rye that's, you know, quite characteristic, but it's just full of depth. There's tons of character to it. And so really, really interesting stuff. They also released at the same time a 20-year-old that's quite good, but it really is not anywhere near the cask strength. The cask strength is special. So they just released their third batch of that this year. So yeah, it's really, really nice stuff. You know, Canada's an interesting place when it comes to whiskey because we've got great grain. We've got really like world-class leading farmers. We've got good pure water. So there's some, you know, really great ingredients that are coming to it. But the regulations here as far as whiskey manufacturing is actually quite different than most of the other places in the world. So there's some rules that are different here than in other places. And one of those rules is that when you're making your whiskey, that you're allowed to incorporate up to 1/11 parts a different type of alcohol within the whiskey, right? And so some of these brands now are starting to play around with different ways of incorporating not just cask finishing, but actually adding in some different components to try to play with these. And there's one brand that I've been working with a little bit who are really messing with maturation these days. And they've got shipping containers that they're putting on tops of mountains in all different places throughout the country. And they're really playing with the viscosity of the wood. And as the temperatures fluctuate, you can have a 30 to 40 degree fluctuation within the day, from the middle of the night to the middle of the day. And so they're playing around with how do these temperatures affect the whiskey, and how does the maturation change based on extreme elements to make it really Canadian. And so just lots of room to play, lots of room to kind of try different things. And, you know, Canada's got some fantastic whiskey, and a lot of craft distillers that are now starting to pop up all over the place. And so it's
I like
time.
the what you say about the addition of different alcohols, and it's so interesting, and I'm not sure exactly where that starts and stops, but I remember reading into it years ago, and I haven't looked at it since. But so we would just think sherry, maybe wine, port wine, something like that. But you can add bourbon to Canadian whiskey. You can add anything that's an alcoholic product basically can be added, right? It's any spirit, any wine. It's an amazing thing, and it's quite a lot. I remember it was like 9% or something like that you can add to the product. It's mad, yeah.
I think there's one bottle. It's a mezcal. It's 10 parts whiskey, 1 part of mezcal, and so it just changes the whole kind of flavor. You know, take it as you want. You might really
I quite like it as an idea. Yeah,
it's fun, I think, to just try some new things and innovate. You know, it's just interesting to see, and it might not be for everybody, but it is cool to see, I think, you know, distillers that are starting to ask the question of how far can we push this, and what does that look like, and let's create some new ways forward, but let's try some different things. Sometimes it might not work, but sometimes it might be awesome. So let's see.
Yeah, it does. I think I remember what you were talking about, because I think that was back in our Diageo days when we were doing the W set. Remember, we had to host that, so we had to read up about everything. And I remember reading about that with Canadian whiskey. I think it was called the 909 rule, because it was like, was it not 9.09% you're allowed to add or something like that?
Yeah. Okay. I think you're right. And it was funny actually. So we used to do these courses, right, Eric, and usually there was a whiskey dinner after the first day. And Mitch was kind of managing it all and stuff like that, and I was sort of, you know, the guy doing the bits and pieces that Mitch basically told me to do. So I'd always end up with bloody Canadian whiskey and cognac, right? So two things I know fuck all about. And you're hungover, so you're blagging your way through these sessions, man. I don't know how we got away with it.
I remember, Daz, it wasn't you, but it was one of the other ambassadors, Eric, and they were talking about, I think they were talking about, it must have been talking about sherry, and they started talking about the Solera. And this guy he hadn't read anything about sherry. It's like, yeah, Solera, it's a beautiful part of Spain. It's got amazing beaches. And someone stuck their hand up and went, wait, is that not an Asian method of sherry? And he was just like, yeah, so on to brandy.
that's new brandy.
But that wasn't you, Daz. That was someone else. I think that was Baz, actually.
Probably. Funny, man.
Good times. So, Eric, before we go, you must have like a seriously crazy story from being out in the wild and doing all the stuff you do, right?
You know, one of the coolest things that I got to be a part of was a few years ago. I got invited by the Glenfiddich team here in Canada to head up to a place called Churchill, Manitoba, which is famous for its polar bear population. There's actually more polar bears there in the spring than people that live in this place. I think it's like 1,600 or something polar bears that kind of migrate through this town out onto the ice or head back in as it starts to freeze up. And so the interesting thing about Churchill is that it has quite a rich whiskey heritage there, because the first place of export for Glenfiddich whiskey from Scotland into the rest of the world came in through Churchill, Manitoba, the port there, which I don't know. I never knew that before I was up there. It's a really out of the way town in northern Canada, but right on the Hudson Bay. So I guess there's good access from Scotland for whiskey imports. Yeah. And so we're out there, and we set up this restaurant for a special tasting. They're tasting through the experimental series at the time. And it's actually incredible, because they created a glass ceiling restaurant when they pulled in some really gourmet chefs to kind of lead this long dinner table, and we're sipping on great whiskey. We're enjoying this kind of time together, and the Northern Lights are actually dancing overhead, like the most vivid display of Northern Lights I've ever seen. So you're sitting there drinking your Glenfiddich, you're looking up at the Northern Lights, and you look over at the door, and there's a man in a full-on snowsuit, looks like he's about to go to war, and he's got a shotgun standing at the door, and he's guarding us from polar bears. And so as a photographer, of course, I want to go outside to take a couple snaps of these Northern Lights. And so I go over there with my camera in hand and say, hey, can I pop, it's after a few drams too, right? So I was feeling quite brave. I said, can I pop outside to take a few photos? And he's like, got all nervous, and he's like, just a second. And he took out his flashlight, and he's literally scanning the snowbanks, because polar bears like to lie in the snow. And because they're so white, they hide and they cover their black nose with their paws. And they wait for a prairie-based photographer to walk out into the tundra to have a little snack. And so he says, yeah, go for it, but be quick. So I don't think I've ever taken quicker photos in my whole life as he's standing there with his shotgun. And at that time, the crazy thing is too, is that you can't even make this stuff up. This sounds so cliche Canadian. We're in the tundra running from polar bears. An Arctic fox actually ran past him now that the guard was gone from the door and ran inside the restaurant. And he's running laps around and all the people are screaming. They're getting up on their chairs as Fox is trying to figure out how to get out of there. Oh yeah, it was awesome. It was an amazing time. So polar bears all over the place, but I got some cool shots. I didn't get eaten. It was a pretty good experience.
Always a bonus when you don't get eaten by a polar bear, man. Well, Erik, it's been great having you on, man. Thank you so much for your time. The only thing I'm disappointed in is that you haven't said "a" at all.
Yeah, sorry. I really got to work on my my Canadian slang. I guess I've been away too much, but
and no abouts either.
Yeah, save it for September. Save it for September. Yeah.
Exactly, man. All right, Erik, we're going to wrap this up, man. But thank you again, and everyone, go and follow From Barrel to Bottle. Check them out. Amazing stuff. Erik, I'll see you in Scotland in September, brother.
Thanks, guys. Thanks so much for having me.